When the engine of Tom Cruise's vehicle fails unexpectedly near a modest, overlooked automobile repair shop, the actor anticipates nothing beyond a swift fix. However, within the walls of the establishment, toiling in solitude beneath faded fluorescent lighting, is an elderly technician with weathered palms and quiet resolve. Something about this individual, his exactness, his isolation, remains with Tom well after he departs. 7 days later, Tom returns, intending to express gratitude. Yet upon arrival, he discovers the establishment unlit, the entryways secured, and what he subsequently learns leaves him standing motionless in the roadway, deeply affected. Before we proceed with this narrative, please inform us of your viewing location. And should you appreciate tales of this nature, subscribe to our channel, as tomorrow brings another exceptional story for your enjoyment. The golden rays of sunset bathed Los Angeles, casting a warm amber light across the urban landscape. Within a small, traditional car repair establishment on the city periphery, Brad Williams cleared the lubricant from his palms and released a tired exhalation. At 64 years of age, Brad had dedicated the majority of his existence to automobile maintenance. His modest, single-person establishment had endured for decades, outlasting major dealerships and contemporary repair facilities. Not because of sophistication, but because individuals placed their confidence in him. Yet trust failed to cover hospital expenses. Brad flinched slightly as he pressed his palm against his chest, experiencing a familiar discomfort. These episodes had increased in frequency recently. Merely exhaustion, he convinced himself. Illness wasn't an option he could afford. Just as Brad prepared to conclude operations for the evening, the distinctive sound of an engine fighting for survival filled the atmosphere. Turning toward the entrance, Brad narrowed his vision at the sight of a Lamborghini, rich crimson, elegant, a vintage model. Coming to a halt before his establishment, the vehicle was exquisite, costly. The type of machine that belonged in an upscale showroom, not his humble workspace. The engine sputtered one final time before ceasing completely. Moments later, the operator's door swung outward. A tall figure, attired in black leather outerwear and dark denim, emerged, removing his dark eyewear. His demeanor exuded effortless coolness, the kind of individual who seemed more suited to a film scene than a dusty automobile repair shop. He approached Brad with a composed, courteous expression. "Evening, think you could examine it?" Brad assessed the vehicle, then the individual. Something familiar resonated about him, though Brad couldn't identify it. Probably another affluent person with an expensive plaything, he concluded. He emitted a low grunt. "Too much luxury for my preference." The individual chuckled. "Yeah, but a car's still a car, right?" Brad's lips curved slightly. "A motor is a motor." Without additional commentary, he retrieved his toolkit and released the hood, never once realizing he had just encountered Tom Cruise. As Brad leaned over the engine, his skilled hands immediately initiated work, identifying the issue, examining the components. The individual stood nearby, observing with genuine curiosity, arms casually folded. "You operate alone?" he inquired. "Always have." Brad's tone was rough, yet not unkind. These days, nobody wants to genuinely repair things. They merely exchange components and charge excessively. The individual nodded thoughtfully. "I respect that. A genuine mechanic." Brad snorted. "Damn right." But as he continued working, an acute pain traversed his chest, causing him to grimace, though he swiftly concealed it, dismissing the sensation. Just minor strain. He'd recover. After all, responsibilities awaited. As the individual leaned forward slightly, observing the expert at work, Brad muttered, "I can remedy this. Just require a few minutes." What he remained unaware of was that this was no ordinary client, and the individual observing him would soon transform his existence forever. The evening atmosphere in Los Angeles grew cooler. But within Brad Williams's modest garage, the air was heavy with the aroma of oil, metal, and diligent effort. Brad, sleeves elevated, instrument in hand, bent over the exposed hood of the Lamborghini. His experienced gaze scanning the engine, seeking the problem source. The tall individual, dressed in black leather outerwear and dark denim, positioned himself nearby, observing with quiet patience. Brad had encountered his type previously. Wealthy individuals who adored their vehicles, yet possessed no understanding of their function. But something distinguished this one. Brad murmured to himself as he reached into the engine compartment. Too much wiring, too many computers. These contemporary vehicles don't allow you to sense the machinery anymore. The individual smirked, nodding. I appreciate people who execute tasks properly. Brad snorted. Yeah. Then you're in the incorrect city, kid. The individual chuckled, but remained silent. Brad concentrated on the engine, turning a wrench, adjusting a belt. He had serviced thousands of vehicles throughout his lifetime. And this one? It differed little. But Brad's respiration felt more labored than usual. A dull pressure settled in his chest, which he disregarded. A task awaited completion. As Brad worked, the individual remained close, genuinely interested. So, you've been engaged in this profession for an extended period? Brad maintained his focus on the task. 50 years. Established this shop in '74. Maintained operations ever since. The individual nodded, impressed. That's uncommon nowadays. Brad wiped lubricant from his hands, examining the stranger. Yeah? What's your occupation? The individual smiled. I work in entertainment. Brad raised an eyebrow. Music? Movies? The individual hesitated momentarily. Movies. Brad grunted. Figures. Always someone from Hollywood operating a Lamborghini. The individual laughed, not offended, merely amused. Not mine. Borrowed from an acquaintance. But I do appreciate automobiles. Brad nodded approvingly. At least you respect them. Most wealthy individuals merely treat them as trophies. The individual's smile diminished slightly, and he nodded again. Yeah, I've never placed much value on trophies. Brad returned his attention to the engine, grasping a wrench, and froze. A sharp, burning sensation traversed his chest, spreading across his ribs. His breathing faltered. His vision blurred momentarily. The pain subsided, but his hands trembled slightly. He clenched his jaw. These episodes had been occurring for some time now. No time for distractions. He compelled himself to continue, securing the final bolt. The engine was repaired. That held significance. Brad retreated and wiped his forehead. All right, attempt it now. The individual slid into the driver's position and activated the ignition. The engine roared to life. A perfect, smooth sound. Brad crossed his arms, satisfied. There she is. The individual smiled, placing his hands on the steering apparatus. Beautiful. He exited the vehicle, reaching for his wallet. What compensation do I owe you? Brad shook his head. Nothing. Witnessing a vehicle function correctly suffices for me. The individual paused, appearing genuinely surprised. Are you certain? Brad dismissed him. I don't charge for simple tasks. Return if she presents issues again. The individual observed Brad momentarily. Then he smiled. I will. And I'll bring coffee next time. Brad chuckled. Just avoid that fancy Starbucks variety. The individual laughed, entering the Lamborghini. He lowered the window, offering Brad a respectful nod. See you soon, Mr. Williams. Brad merely grunted, watching as the vehicle merged onto the roadway. He remained unaware of whom he had just assisted. And he remained unaware of how significantly that individual would alter his life. As Brad secured his establishment, his chest tightened again. Momentarily, breathing became difficult. He grasped the doorframe, waiting for the sensation to subside. And then, as before, it did. Dismissing it, he extinguished the lights. Another day, another vehicle. But tomorrow? Tomorrow would differ, because the individual he had just assisted was already formulating plans to return. This occasion, he wouldn't arrive empty-handed. The sound of the Lamborghini's engine resonated beneath him, as Tom Cruise navigated through the quiet Los Angeles streets. The night air cooled against his skin. His hands rested lightly on the steering apparatus, but his thoughts weren't focused on the vehicle. They centered on Brad Williams. That elderly mechanic. Gruff. Stubborn. But fundamentally honest. A rare quality in this metropolis. Tom had encountered countless individuals throughout his existence. Actors. Directors. Millionaires. But something about Brad distinguished him. Something authentic. And for reasons unexplained, Tom couldn't dismiss the sensation that he needed to understand more about him. Upon arriving home, Tom poured himself water and retrieved his laptop. He entered into the search field. Brad Williams, Auto Repair Los Angeles. The initial result displayed a basic website, evidently outdated. No sophisticated branding. No flashy promotions. Just the words. Williams's Auto Repair. Honest work since 1974. Tom proceeded through the pages. Several grainy photographs displayed Brad as a younger individual, standing proudly before his establishment, wrench in hand. He scrolled further and noticed something that attracted his attention. Forum posts. From regular clientele. Individuals who had documented Brad's impact over the years. Tom leaned closer, reading. I was financially destitute. And my vehicle malfunctioned on the freeway. Brad repaired it without charge. Instructed me to compensate him when possible. I never forgot that. This man once remained after hours to repair my truck. Enabling me to arrive at my night employment. Refused additional payment. My father brought his vehicle here for 30 years. When he passed, Brad repaired his old Chevy just so we could drive it to the funeral. Tom's grip on the laptop intensified. This individual wasn't merely a mechanic. He was a cornerstone of his community. Yet, no one beyond this small neighborhood seemed aware of it. Tom reclined in his chair, gazing at the screen. He had encountered Brad for less than 60 minutes. But now, he understood one certainty. Brad Williams wasn't just anyone. He exemplified goodness. And individuals like him. They deserved more than obscurity. Tom glanced back at his laptop screen. His mind already functioning. There must exist a method to repay Brad. But not through finances. Brad would reject it. He had already declined payment once. So what did Brad value? Tom recalled the conversation in the garage. How Brad discussed proper repairs. How he stated contemporary mechanics merely exchanged parts. Instead of understanding the machinery. And then, realization struck. Tom smiled inwardly. This transcended providing Brad with monetary compensation. This concerned providing him with a legacy. Tom closed his laptop and seized his phone. Someone required contacting. But before he could dial, something unexpected occurred. His phone vibrated initially. An unidentified number. He frowned, hesitating momentarily before answering. Hello? A hesitant voice responded. Hey, is this Tom Cruise? Tom assumed a straighter posture. Who's inquiring? The voice sighed. My name's Robert. I own the laundromat opposite Brad Williams's shop. Tom's grip intensified on the phone. Why was this individual contacting him? How did you acquire this number? Tom questioned. Robert hesitated. Look, I recognize this seems unusual. But I observed you at Brad's shop tonight. And, well, I reasoned if anyone could assist, it's you. Tom's heart descended. Something was amiss. What transpired? Robert sighed again. Brad's in the hospital. Tom experienced a chill permeate his being. He had intended to revisit Brad's shop tomorrow. Now, he realized. Tomorrow might arrive too late. He seized his keys. He was departing now. Because certain debts couldn't be postponed. And Brad Williams merited more than just another forgotten narrative. Tom didn't delay. He seized his vehicle keys, adorned a jacket, and exited within moments. Brad Williams was hospitalized. And Tom harbored a negative premonition that this wasn't merely an overnight accommodation. The streets exhibited unusual quietude when Tom halted at Williams's auto repair. But upon parking, his chest constricted. The garage, typically dimly illuminated but operationally late, was entirely darkened. And on the entrance, irregularly affixed, was a solitary sheet of paper. Tom exited his vehicle, his footwear echoing against the pavement as he neared the entrance. The notice read, "Closed indefinitely." His jaw tensed. So it was factual. Brad was absent. And judging by the establishment's appearance, he had been absent for days. As Tom stood, still processing, the sound of approaching footsteps prompted him to turn. A man in his 60s, attired in faded plaid, stood near the laundromat across the thoroughfare. Recognition illuminated his expression. "You're the individual from yesterday evening, aren't you?" Tom nodded gradually. "Robert?" The man offered a small, sorrowful smile. "Yeah, apologies for contacting you unexpectedly, but I assumed you'd want information." Tom's voice was subdued, steady. "What occurred?" Robert sighed, rubbing his graying facial hair. "Brad experienced an episode while working recently, appeared severely unwell. One of his clients discovered him hunched over in the garage, attempting to persevere." Tom clenched his jaw. He recalled Brad pausing, rubbing his chest while servicing the Lamborghini. He had recognized something was amiss. He should have inquired, should have remained longer. "Where is he?" Tom asked, his voice resolute. "County General, admitted since Monday." Tom nodded, already moving toward his vehicle. Robert called after him. "Listen, I'm unaware of your connection to Brad, but that man? He's been sustaining this establishment longer than most individuals have been alive." And now, Tom turned back, waiting. Robert sighed. "Now, I doubt if he possesses the strength to continue fighting." Tom's grip intensified on his vehicle keys. Brad had dedicated everything to his establishment, to this community. And now, when assistance was required, no one remained to advocate for him. Tom wouldn't permit that outcome. Without further dialogue, he entered his vehicle and accelerated toward the hospital. Because this transcended repairing a damaged motor. This concerned repairing something more substantial. As Tom merged onto the freeway, his hands clasped the steering apparatus. Brad might reject charity, but Tom wasn't offering charity. He was offering something more profound. And regardless of Brad's preference, Tom wouldn't depart that hospital without a strategy. Because this wasn't merely a visitation. This marked the commencement of something far more significant. The corridors of County General emanated the scent of antiseptic and aged coffee. Tom Cruise traversed them with determination. His footwear softly resonating against the linoleum. He wasn't present for an autograph. He wasn't present for publicity. He was present for Brad Williams. And if Robert's statements had been accurate, time wasn't an ally. At the reception, a nurse blinked upon observing Tom. To her merit, she didn't request a self-portrait. "I'm seeking Brad Williams. He was admitted several days ago." She entered information into the system, then nodded. Room 402, second floor. He's stable, but don't anticipate excessive conversation. Tom expressed gratitude and proceeded to the elevator. Stable. That was positive. But if Brad conversed minimally, that indicated a problem. And Tom needed to ascertain what. The hospital room was dimly illuminated. Brad reclined in bed, pallid, connected to an IV and cardiac monitor. Tom stood momentarily, simply observing. The man who had been repairing his Lamborghini effortlessly, now appeared exhausted. Then, Brad's eyes partially opened. And his initial utterance? "Damn, don't inform me your vehicle malfunctioned again." Tom grinned. Even now, Brad remained unchanged. He positioned a chair. Nope, still operating flawlessly. Brad snorted, then winced, a hand moving to his chest. Tom frowned. "How severe is it?" Brad shrugged. The motion appeared exhausting. "Doctors say I possess a heart that refuses to obey me anymore. Similar to a faulty engine, but replacement isn't an option." Tom's jaw tensed. This wasn't merely a challenging week. This was serious, and Brad recognized it. Tom leaned forward. "Look, Brad, I want to assist." Brad emitted a dry chuckle. "Kid, I know your identity. You're wealthy, famous, and whatever you're about to propose involves finances." Tom maintained his composure. "Yeah, I want to cover your medical expenses." Brad turned his head, expression unreadable. Then, following a prolonged pause, he shook his head. "No." Tom exhaled slowly. "Brad, I don't accept handouts, kid." His voice was firm. Tom studied him. Brad wasn't merely proud. He had spent his existence standing independently. He wouldn't alter that now. Tom nodded slowly. "Fine." If Brad wouldn't accept money, Tom would need to conceive something superior. Tom reclined. Then, abruptly, "You constructed something, Brad. And you're just going to allow it to perish?" Brad frowned. "What the hell are you discussing?" Tom gestured. "Your shop. Your work. The people you've assisted. What transpires when you're no longer present?" Brad sighed. "Guess it closes." Tom tilted his head. "Does that feel appropriate to you?" Brad remained silent. Tom could observe it. The weight of realization descending. Then, Tom leaned forward. "I have an idea." Brad narrowed his eyes. "Oh, I wager you do." Tom smirked. "Consider my proposition." Brad had spent his existence repairing broken objects. Now, Tom was about to repair something for him. And regardless of Brad's preference. This was merely the commencement. Once Brad stabilized sufficiently for discharge, Tom initiated work. Over the subsequent weeks, Brad's shop transformed. The old Williams's auto repair sign was removed. And a new one assumed its place. Teaching the next generation. Brad contested the name. "I don't require my name on a damn edifice." Tom had simply smirked. "It's not merely an edifice. It's a narrative." That silenced Brad immediately. When the shop reopened, attendance exceeded all expectations. Former clientele, young mechanics, even children who had never contacted an engine previously, they all appeared. Some merely wanted to see Brad again. Others, they sought knowledge. Tom observed from a distance. Brad, perpetually gruff, reprimanded a nervous 20-year-old holding a wrench incorrectly. "If you're going to repair a vehicle, at least hold the damn tool with intent." The youth gulped, adjusted his grip, and reattempted. Tom chuckled. Brad would never change. But that precisely ensured this would succeed. That evening, as Brad secured the premises, he turned to Tom. His voice was subdued, but sincere. "Guess I'm indebted to you, kid." Tom smirked. "Nah. You've already repaid me." Brad frowned. "How the hell did I achieve that?" Tom indicated toward the shop. "By demonstrating that the correct methodology still merits teaching." Brad observed the sign one final time, and for the first time in an extended period. He experienced pride. One evening, Brad stood outside, gazing at the new sign. He read, "The Brad Williams Technical Garage, since 1967, and beneath, a new line. Because certain things deserve proper execution." Brad smiled. Perhaps he hadn't anticipated any of this. Perhaps life had presented him with an unexpected challenge. But one certainty existed. His narrative wasn't concluded. And presently? It would never cease to exist. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoy this video, and learned a lesson. I would be grateful for your likes. Also don't forget to subscribe and comment on the video. See you soon.